Hello and welcome to Video Monsters, the podcast that takes movies seriously without taking ourselves too seriously. I'm Nathan.
I'm Eric.
I'm Dan.
And tonight, we have a gift of an episode for you. It's a simple plan, really, but a great and powerful one nonetheless. If you're a bit in the dark, man, don't worry. We won't be dragging you to hell with tonight's episode. Because tonight, we are doing a very, very special popcorn punch-out video rack attack bracket to arrive at the top three Sam Raimi films, minus Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. And I'll get into a little bit more about why in just a second, as we discuss Sam Raimi for the Chattanooga Film Festival 2023. And while while we do take movies seriously and might get a bit fight with each other in tonight's episode, rest assured, we do love each other, and our bickering is all for the love of the game that is the popcorn punch-out.
That was quite the gift, Nathan.
I'm sitting here shaking my head the whole time as if I don't do the exact same thing in our episode descriptions when we post them online.
And I'm sitting here trying to get through all of it as the two of you start chuckling at me. And I'm like, oh shit, I did not take that into account when I was writing down what I was going to say. So that's fun.
Lots of fun.
You didn't have pause for laughter written into your notes.
No.
Probably a good thing. Probably a good thing.
At one point, I actually did have pause for laughter, but I was like, no, I'll take that out because I'll be the only one laughing.
It's very awfully presumptuous of you to assume you're gonna have laughs out of that one.
Pause for groans with the intro to the episode. So we're going to be talking about the Sam Raimi films, and we're using our patented popcorn punch-out video rack attack bracket. And if you've never listened to Video Monsters before, typically we do deep dive analysis episodes where we take a single movie and we spend literally hours diving into it and dissecting it and just really getting at the heart of the movie. But we also use the popcorn punch-out, which is a very loose bracket of sorts. It is putting a bunch of movies into a giant plastic Halloween skull and then using random pairings arriving at a top three. And we typically do this to decide on the movies that we're going to be talking about, but we love doing our popcorn punch-out so much that we also do it to occasionally rank movies, sort of ranking arriving at the top three. So even though typically we have 20 movies in the skull, we don't rank all 20. It's just let's whittle it down to the top three. In tonight's episode, it's going to be a mini popcorn punch-out, which means that we're only going to be using 11 movies in the skull. So we're going to have a round of 8, the final 4, and then the chaos bracket. If you're wondering what the chaos bracket is, that's basically the loser's bracket of the final 4, but each of us have a chaos card. And if in one of the pairings a movie loses, we can use that chaos card to put it into that loser's bracket. And we can't have more than 4. Is that what I've said? Sometimes I forget. If the 2 losers from the loser's bracket are there and 2 of us have used a chaos card, then all 4 of those movies are the options for the final pick in the chaos bracket. But if all 3 of us use a chaos card, then the 2 losers in the final 4 get knocked out, and it's just chaos. Might be a little, yes, it is all chaos. There's a lot of chaos in what we do, a lot of bickering back and forth, a lot of arguing about movies, and we typically spend a whole lot of time arguing about movies. So we're actually going to kind of skip past some of our usual banter before we start diving into the episode. But let's talk a little bit about why Raimi. Why did we decide to go with Raimi for our Chattanooga Film Festival episode?
Well, we initially discussed Peter Jackson.
James Cameron.
I mean, we could have done Cameron, but people would have been mad at me, mostly, probably.
People would definitely be mad at you. I'm already mad at you just thinking about it. Nathan has some controversial takes on James Cameron. Yep. But no, so initially we talked about Peter Jackson, but the issue there was just that I hadn't seen enough of his movies and didn't think I'd have enough time to prep. So we went with Sam Raimi. Basically what we were trying to look for was someone who we felt like exhibits the spirit of the Chattanooga Film Festival, like a familiar filmmaker, so that way, everybody listening in would have like a pretty solid familiarity with their body of work and would have something to root for in the Punch-Out. But yeah, I mean, Sam Raimi, he's kind of like the ultimate uh DIY filmmaker who did good and made it big, you know? Like I feel like it's such a he's such an exuberant filmmaker. He loves to just like go all out. He loves to do a whole bunch of like a wide variety of different types of films. Like he has such a varied filmography. And it feels like that is such a perfect his career felt like a perfect encapsulation of the spirit of the Chattanooga Film Festival, I think.
Yeah, especially, with all of the goopy excessive horror, starting with the Evil Dead, and then sports movies, and then children's movies. He's got such a unique film path. And part of the reason that we are not including the Spider-Man movies or the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is two reasons. One, we're eventually going to do a Spider-Man Punch-Out. We're eventually going to do Marvel Punch-Out. So we're eventually going to cover those anyways. And also, we're only going to be pulling 8 movies out of the skull, out of the possible 11, which means it is possible for none of the Evil Dead movies to even make it out of the skull. So as we are talking about what are the 3 best Sam Raimi movies, because of the very heavy chaotic element in the way that we do this, it's possible that we might not discuss Evil Dead at all. And I just didn't like those odds, honestly. I did not want to risk having 6 movies or 7 movies not even come out of the skull, because that really upped the chances of not getting any Evil Dead. So honestly, that's part of why.
This would not have been as much fun if 4 of the 8 movies had been Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like you think about the Spider-Man trilogy, and that is like very much those movies are all a very similar tone. They're telling one continuous story. Despite the fact that Evil Dead is a trilogy of films, they're also very different from one another. And like, sure, they are kind of telling a continuing story, but they're also like, I mean, Evil Dead 2 is like partly a remake of Evil Dead 1 that's recontextualizing the events of that first film and then jumping off of them. Army of Darkness is a fucking fish out of water time travel movie set in the Middle Ages, and so like I felt like they were different enough that it wouldn't feel as samey as it would if we had 3 different Spider-Man movies coming out of a skull.
Wouldn't feel so samey for Raimi.
Samey for Raimi, yeah.
I beat you to it, Nathan.
I love that both of us went there. So yeah, speaking of feeling samey for Raimi and the Evil Dead, this is probably a good time to mention a little bit of our personal histories with the Raimi films. And I'll start because I have the shortest history. I love Evil Dead, all 4 movies, yes, 4, more than I can possibly explain.
Because you mean the remake, right?
No, the 4 Raimi directed Evil Dead movies, in which I include Drag Me to Hell, which is totally an Evil Dead movie. Even if it's not officially Evil Dead, it is absolutely an Evil Dead movie. So yeah, the only 4 Raimi films that I had seen, not counting Spider-Man films, have been the Evil Dead movies. So Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, and Drag Me to Hell. And that's it. And I felt like I had seen so many more of his films, and so we're like, oh yeah, Raimi, that's gonna be perfect. I've seen enough of his movies for us to talk about this. Pulled up Letterboxd, looked at his movies, and I was like, oh well, shit, I have seen next to none of these. I need to get on that and start watching them. But I love Evil Dead so much. Like those movies are such an important part of who I am as a cinephile and as a film lover. And like if any of you have ever listened to oh shit, Pure Cinema. If any of you have ever listened to Pure Cinema podcast with Elric Kane, he's talked a number of times about handshake movies. And I feel like all 3 of the Evil Deads could potentially be in my 5 handshake films, depending on the day. So like they are such a vital part of the way that I approach cinema and what I love about them, because they're all again so drastically different, all with such unique styles. And that's it. And then I hadn't seen any of the other Raimi films until about the last 2 or 3 weeks, when I've been powering through all of them. And I've got some thoughts, and I cannot wait to piss off Eric.
Yeah, this is an exciting meta narrative because Nathan hasn't really told me too much about what he thinks of these movies. So I'm very excited to hear his thoughts on all of these.
All that I've told you is that if Crime Wave comes out of the skull, that is not an instant no vote for me.
Dear God. Dan, what about you? Tell us your Raimi.
I was introduced to Sam Raimi through Evil Dead 2 by my high school drama teacher, who showed the kitchen scene with Bruce Campbell versus his hand as part of our study of movement. And I was just absolutely floored by it. He only referred to the movie as Evil Dead. So when I went to the video store to rent it, I rented the Evil Dead, the first one. And then I told all my friends that, it was like a sleepover where I watched this movie. I'm like, wait till you get to the scene where he cuts his own fucking hand off. It's going to be amazing. And then we're just like, where the hell is that scene? Not realizing that there was a second one. So after we watched the movie, we returned it the next day. And I was like, I swear that was the same guy. It sounded like the same plot. But then we saw Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn on the shelf. And I'm like, so then we watched that. So double hit of Sam Raimi right off the bat. And then Darkman had just recently come out on HBO. So that was like an immediate watch too, like right after that. That is my Sam Raimi history. And then, of course, when he branched out into other genres when I was working at a video store, I just gobbled those right up. I couldn't get enough of Sam Raimi films at that point because everything he was doing, he was jumping through genres, and everything he was doing was interesting to me.
It's interesting because I was going to say that my intro to I'm a little bit younger than you two, so my intro to Sam Raimi was the Spider-Man films. But I was thinking about it, and I technically my intro to Sam Raimi was a scene from A Simple Plan, which is really weird. I remember as a kid that there's one scene in that movie that is so burned into my brain, because when I was a kid, my parents had rented it, and I was supposed to be asleep. But our living room was set up where my parents would sit at the couch, and their back was to the hallway where my bedroom was, so I could like kind of walk down the hallway and sneak a glance at the TV screen while they were watching R-rated movies. And they wouldn't know that I was there. And A Simple Plan has one scene a little over halfway through that I don't want to spoil, but let's say that there is someone who flies backward. A great like, it's funny when I watch the movie because as a kid I remember the scene, somebody gets shot by a shotgun and flies backwards into a cabinet, and as a kid in my mind it was more of like an Evil Dead, like this person flew all the way across the kitchen kind of thing, because I was like, holy shit, what's going on? But every time I rewatch the movie I'm like, oh, it's not like quite as like cartoonish as I imagined it in my head. It's actually incredibly disturbing and very realistic for Sam Raimi. So yeah, that was my actual intro to Sam Raimi. But yeah, I love the Spider-Man movies, and I didn't like horror movies very much as a kid. But Evil Dead 2 was a movie that I was forced to watch at a sleepover. And it was kind of one of those things that, and along with like Scream, were kind of like my my intro to the horror world, where I realized that I could kind of stomach horror movies, and I wasn't, I could kind of be brave enough to get through those movies because of the comedy elements of it. I was still deathly afraid of Evil Dead 2 as it was going on, but there was enough of the fun stuff in there that it like made me feel a little safe at the time. So and it was also just fucking bananas. Like there's no movie like it, and I was just completely enraptured by it. So yeah, that's kind of my Sam Raimi origin. I've loved everything of his ever since, and always get excited when he has a new project, which is very seldom these days, unfortunately.
So, since both of you mentioned a part of your Evil Dead history with your Raimi history, and since that's the entirety of my Raimi history, I'll go ahead and include mine, because I am fairly certain, I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain that Army of Darkness was actually the first of the Evil Dead movies that I saw, because, HBO. And it was on one day, and I was just like, oh, this is weird, whatever. All right, cool. But since that's the one that has so many of the catchphrases, like that's where you have "Hail to the King" and "Groovy" and "This is my boomstick," and like so many of the catchphrases that you associate with Ash come from Army of Darkness.
I think Groovy's an Evil Dead too, right?
It is.
It starts there, but he does have it. He says it again in Army of Darkness.
Yeah, he says it like once in Evil Dead 2. Army of Darkness, I think he says it at least a couple of times. But yeah, so like it is very much a fun kids actiony, like ooh, a little bit of skeletons and some haunty type things. Awesome. And then I watched Evil Dead when I was working in a library on a library computer. So that was fun because I am positive that I was not supposed to be doing that when I was at work for a myriad of reasons. And then I finally caught Evil Dead 2 and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I do not have the typical Evil Dead history, but I still love them all nonetheless.
It feels
all right.
like a lot of people start with Evil Dead 2. Like I feel like Evil
Most
Dead
people
2
do.
is kind of the gateway. I mean, Army of Darkness, I guess, too, because it was on TV a lot. And Army of Darkness is one that I saw bits and pieces of a lot before I ever actually watched the movie. Like, I feel like I saw the scene in the pit over and over again on TV before I actually sat down to watch the whole thing. I'm sorry. We probably need to move on, but
No, it's fine.
I'm so jazzed about this.
Well, with Dan having the original Evil Dead house in his background and Eric having the Evil Dead 2 portal opening up, I really feel like I should have the Army of Darkness in my background.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, I've got the best of both worlds here.
It's true. Mine's just a dark black background, so we can pretend that I'm in the pit, or
that's right.
I'm asleep in the cave, waiting for those 10,000 years to pass.
You're in the darkness.
Yeah,
the 10,000 years, Nathan. You're talking about the director's cut. You can't do that.
Yes,
nobody knows what you're talking about.
Ooh, yeah, they do, because that's yeah. Okay. So let's start getting into this. Again, the 11 Sam Raimi films, not counting Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, are in this giant plastic Halloween skull. And in case you don't know what those 11 movies are, they are not in order because I don't have them all memorized in order. The Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, Darkman, Quick and the Dead, For Love of the Game. I'm forgetting 5 of them.
Do you want me to do this, Nathan?
Do you have them written in front of you?
I've got them in front of me, and I can do them in order too. All right. We have the Evil Dead, Crime Wave, Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. Then it's Darkman, The Quick and the Dead, A Simple Plan, For Love of the Game, and The Gift, and then Drag Me to Hell, and Oz the Great and Powerful.
Right.
I almost forgot what's up too. So yes, those are the 11.
So those are the 11 options. Going to be drawing them out in random pairings. Again, there's going to be a round of 8, which means 3 movies are not even going to make it out of the Skull of Decisions, which is what we call this for reasons. Go back and listen to, like a year ago when we first started doing this with our March Madness and our April's All Out Alien Attack, and you'll get some of the background of why we call some of the things the stupid things that we do.
Yeah, and don't be turned off if you don't understand any of the rules. I don't even understand when I play the game all the time, so it's totally fine. You'll get the hang of it. It's pretty easy. We're basically just pitting movies against each other and voting on which one we want to win.
Yeah,
it's gonna be incredibly difficult with this filmography.
It's basically just the Quick and the Dead of there's no like actual.
It's a bracket.
It's not a real bracket, even though we have bracket in the name of it. It's really just 2 random movies saying, all right, I'm going to fight you to the death. And by death, I mean, which one moves into the next round. All right, so first up.
God, I'm so nervous about how this is going to go.
I know. First up, we have The Gift.
Ooh.
Going up against Army of Darkness.
Oh man, this is fascinating. Okay. All right. So The Gift is from 2000. The tagline for this movie is "The only witness to the crime was not even there." It has an average letterbox rating of 3.1. And it's 112 minutes long.
All right. Army of Darkness from 1992, 81 minutes long. Letterbox rating of 3.7. Trapped in time, surrounded by evil, low on gas.
God, what a great tagline.
That is a great tag. Especially the Gift one sucks. Wow, that's
so good. It's fine. The only witness to the crime was not even there. That's a good hook.
No, it's really not.
A solid hook.
Ugh.
Typically, again, if you've been listening to us for a little while, you know that sometimes we try to play things a little bit closer to our chest and not give away any sort of like, oh, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to vote for, because we like the surprise of what the votes are actually going to be. But with tonight's episode, I feel like we need to make a little bit more of actual cases for the movies and try to actually make arguments and sway the other people, because some of these I might have my mind already made up. Others, there's going to be a whole lot of like, all right, how do you pick between perfection? These were not perfection, so we're not starting off there.
This is a fun matchup. I like these two
it's
going
a
up against each other.
really fun matchup. In fact, weird. I did very loosely rank these movies, and by very loosely, I mean I did put them in an order, but the criteria for which ones I put in which order are not consistent. So I might have put one movie in one spot purely because of nostalgia and how much I love it. And then another one, like, well, it doesn't matter how much I love it, I'm ranking it based off of the quality. So I have very, very inconsistent rankings. But I will say, in the rankings that I have, Army of Darkness and The Gift are right next to each other.
They're right next to each other on mine too. Literally
Not
right
quite,
now.
not quite next to each other, but pretty close for me.
So, Dan, if they are not quite next to each other for you, how about you start some of the debate of which one should move forward?
All right.
And again, just really quick for the listeners. Again, typically we go into a lot more depth, but we are trying to stay to somewhat of a time restraint tonight. So we might not be going into quite as much detail with these movies as we would like to otherwise. Also, I mean, they're Raimi films. Even though I had never seen any of the movies other than Evil Dead before, I knew about all of them. So we're not going to spend too much time talking about like what they're about per se. All right. So yes, Dan, continue.
All right. I'm going to give a little bit of praise first to Army of Darkness because I love that Raimi took this one in a new direction. It is not a horror film. It's not. It's got some horror. It's got some comedy, but it blends a whole lot of drama. And rewatching it recently, you cannot tell me that Peter Jackson did not watch this movie when preparing the Battle of Helm's Deep. There are so many scenes in this where, and you have my sword, and I'm like, right there, Jackson stole that. So we kind of are doing a Peter Jackson draft.
It's interesting how much the ebb and flow of their careers line up. Yeah. It's pretty fascinating.
I really like what he went for in Army of Darkness. However, I absolutely love The Gift. It is his best cast, period. He's got 3 freaking Oscar winners in this movie. 3.
He's got Cate Blanchett at the lead. I mean,
yeah, you got Cate Blanchett. J.K. Simmons. His role was a little smaller in this one than you would expect. But it's you've also got Academy Award nominee Greg Kinnear. That's still weird to say, but damn it,
dude. Greg Kinnear is as good as it gets. Come on.
You've got Keanu in one of his.
Keanu fucking rocks in this movie, dude.
He's a villain, and it's very rare that he's a villain, but he has got some of his John Wick scary shit going on.
He's a redneck and a villain too. Like he's actually a very convincing redneck.
Yeah.
Flannel shirts and all. So good.
So for me, I love that Raimi went. This is when he was kind of experimenting and going into some different genres, and I love that he tackled a Southern Gothic horror.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that. So for me, my choice is going to be The Gift.
Man, this
fascinating. Eric.
Awesome, because I don't know which direction to go right now.
Well, I'll give my spiel next then, but I'm curious. Which one do you have above the other? So with having them right next to each other, which one is on top?
Well, that kind of gives it away.
It's interesting because when I watched Army of Darkness for the first time, all the way through, which was actually just a couple years ago, I did not like it very much. I found it to be like, I guess because I didn't know what to expect. I was like, oh, this is kind of childish. And Bette Davis is like really really wasted here, and she fucking rules. She's so good, and she's just supernaturally gorgeous and awesome. But like, I don't know, there was just something about it. I guess I was kind of really put off by the fact that Ash is such an asshole in the movie, and I found the comic gags to be not quite as fun or amusing as they were in Evil Dead 2. So yeah, the first time I watched it, I didn't like it very much. The second time, I had a fucking blast with it. Um, I actually put Army of Darkness just ahead of The Gift.
Okay, good.
Now, I don't know if that's
Let me make my argument then, because my argument is going to be for Army of Darkness.
God,
And
I'm so excited I get to decide this.
and here's why. I really enjoyed The Gift. I had heard not great things about it. I remember when it came out, kind of being like, oh, brr, kind of horror movie. And I think that I'd seen a few clips of it before, but it was just like, it's whatever. It's fine. It's a movie. Watching it this time, it's like, oh no, this is really good, and I love Southern Gothic horror movies. And this one was written by
Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob Thornton. Yeah, so like there's a lot of really great things about it. There's one thing in particular that for me,
And Tom
holds-
Epperson. Sorry.
but yes, but there's one thing about the movie, for me at least, that holds it back. That as much as I enjoyed it, I don't know if I could say that I love it as much as I love watching Army of Darkness. And it's the fact that it is a Southern Gothic horror movie. All of the ingredients of the Southern Gothic are there, but for me, it doesn't quite gel. So it's like if you've ever made gumbo, you might have the recipe, and you might follow it to a T, and you might have everything in there correctly, and you might like cook things the way that it's supposed to, and following the recipe based off of what your great grandmother gave you, and it might all be there, but without the experience behind actually cooking a gumbo, it's not gonna turn into like, oh, this is some fucking sweet ass gumbo the first time that you make it. It's just like it's fine. And that's how I feel about the Southern Gothic elements of it. If it were a Northeastern Gothic, I don't think that I would have any issue with it. If it were a Pacific Northwest style movies, I don't think that I would have any issue with it. It's the fact that the accents to me take me out of it. Like Greg Kinnear cannot maintain a Southern accent. You get little snippets of it, but dude, I love Greg Kinnear. I think he's a great actor. He cannot, at least in The Gift, he cannot maintain his Southern accent. Keanu Reeves cannot maintain a Southern
come on
accent.
now. Come on now.
He cannot maintain a Southern
Give Keanu one accent. He can get one. Everybody bitches about his accents and like Dracula, and
it's not bad. It's just it doesn't feel natural. None of the accents to me feel natural. And I realize that might be such a minor complaint, but for this to be a Southern Gothic, too much of the Southern pulls me out of it because it's not authentically Southern enough. And again, another kind of minor complaint, but I wish that the Gothic elements were a little bit more pervasive. It's almost more a courtroom drama with a dash of Southern Gothic over here. Like it doesn't fully feel like a Southern Gothic movie flowing throughout. It doesn't feel like you have, that those witchy you don't feel like there's that witchy pulse kind of driving through all of it. It's just kind of there on occasion. And again, it's really good. I really enjoyed it. I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed it based off of what I expected it to be. But the Southern Gothic, it that one piece was enough to have me saying, as great as it is, oh, I honestly.
So what you're saying is just your one complaint over and over and over again, and that's not a terribly compelling case for me.
Look, I'm not saying that I'm convincing Dan.
You could have talked about how like the central mystery of the movie is extremely obvious and resolves itself it feels like it is about to resolve itself, and then it goes on for like 15 minutes longer, and Kate Blanchett doesn't figure it out, even though she's supposed to be psychic. Which is funny because in the movie they like make a big show. There's that great scene with Michael Jeter in the in the courtroom where he's like, "How many fingers do I have held up behind my back?"
I mean, there is also that, but to me, that is actually a lesser complaint because I'm fine with characters not knowing things. I'm fine with the audience knowing stuff that the characters in the film don't. But yeah, for me, I would much rather watch skeletons go fighting
See, that's what
you
you should
know,
have led
a
with.
windmill Oldsmobile. Like I
But
would
see,
so much rather have
That's what you should have
fun.
led with.
but with that, then you don't get Giovanni Ribisi having a perfect
Guys,
Giovanni Ribisi freak out. I mean,
guys, you're making this so
Yes.
hard on me because Giovanni Ribisi
Mhm.
in The Gift is like giving us the most Giovanni Ribisi he's ever been, and Giovanni Ribisi is always the most. Like he's playing, in my review, I wrote that like he's playing every single human emotion all at once, all the time. He's always pitched at like a 45. Like
Here,
he's
here is both the good
so
and the bad.
incredible.
Here's both the good and bad about Giovanni Ribisi. He understood the assignment.
It's great. Yeah.
He's the only one who understood the assignment.
No, come
Yes.
on
No,
now.
no,
This
no,
movie's such a good like Southern
It's-
Gothic melodrama. I think that's the thing is like this is a melodrama. Like it is a movie where the emotions are always pitched really high. Giovanni Ribisi fucking hits a grand slam with off of that pitch. Um but yeah, I don't know, man. And I think that the movie sustains like such a great amount of tension. I think Kate Blanchett's great. She's very vulnerable. There's some incredible close-ups in this movie of her face, and she's just like such a great face actor. She's so compelling. There's so many great like supernatural freak out moments in this movie. This movie it has more horror elements to it than Army of Darkness. Like
Sure, but
the
Army of Darkness is more fun. Here's
I mean,
okay.
you get
One
fucking
other
you get
thing.
Danny Elfman playing the fiddle in a swamp. I mean, come on. But I do have to say,
That part is pretty great.
the skeletons in Army of Darkness is definitely my least favorite of the Evil Dead trilogy. However, the fucking skeletons at the like final battle are like my favorite thing that has ever happened in a movie. Like those skeletons are so fucking delightful. Marching in, playing their bone instruments, having a good time. You get like guys I mean, it's just Raimi at the top of his game in terms of craft, where he's like got stop motion elements, he's got like some rear projection stuff going on, he's got models, he's got guys in suits, he's like just combining everything so well. And I don't want to say it's seamless because you can see the seams, but that adds to the fun for me. Like that final bit
Well,
of Army of Darkness, that
here-
last act is just the most fun
Here are two more
a
things,
movie ever had.
and then we need to vote because this is only the first pairing. So two more things. In Army of Darkness, you get so many more like very clear examples of inspirations for Raimi. You get Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court. You get Gulliver's Travels with the little tiny ashes tying him down. You get the Harryhausen inspirations. Like there's so many classic literature elements that shine through, and I feel like it tells you so much more about who Raimi is as a director. And if we're looking at better movie, maybe The Gift is better. But if we're looking at better Raimi movie, Army of Darkness is a better representation of Sam Raimi. And also, we fucking better have an Evil Dead movie make it to
Yeah.
the end. And who knows if there's going to be another one coming out.
Well, you have
So-
2 more chances of a possible Evil Dead film coming out.
That's true.
You have
And if-
0 more chances of a Kate Blanchett film coming out.
Zero more Keanu, zero more Giovanni Ribisi, zero Greg Kinnear, zero Katie Holmes. You do
All
have some
kinds
more
of
Chelsea
Bruce Campbell
Ross.
All kinds of Bruce Campbell opportunity.
J.K.
coming out.
Simmons. Oh.
There's other J.K. Simmons possibilities.
Man, Bruce Campbell in Army of Darkness is so good though. Like he's just the best fucking actor.
He
He's
is.
such a great
All right.
physical actor. It's
We need to vote.
yeah.
We
All
need
right,
to
god
vote.
damn it. I'm still not sure where I'm going with this.
All right. Well, we're voting in the chat. So I've got my picked out,
All right.
obviously. Dan obviously has his. Eric,
I'm
are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm playing this. I have a hunch about what's going to happen, so I'm playing this strategically. Is all I'm going to say.
God. All right, video rack attack.
All right.
These bitches.
So, Army of Darkness has triumphed over the gift. Dan, would you like to use a chaos card?
Remember,
no, because I have to protect my other one.
Oh man. Okay, I really thought you were going to use a chaos card on.
No.
for this.
You should have just rewarded the gift like you wanted to.
Shit. Okay, well. I mean, you are wearing an I Love Evil Dead shirt.
Coming out and Evil Dead coming out. We're going to be faced with a whole bunch of fucking Evil Dead, and y'all will be to blame.
I may regret my choice. Man.
Well, it's too late.
I'm looking at this card on the table here.
And as I'm drawing out the next pairing for our listeners, if you listen to our fuller popcorn punch outs, we do have more gizmos, as I call the chaos cards. So typically we have a little bit more that we can do. Like sometimes we have more than one, or we have a thing where we can put a pick back in the skull and redraw a different one. In these mini popcorn punch outs, nope, we each only have one chaos card a piece. So we are a lot more limited in ways that we can manipulate the game. All right.
I feel kind of bad now. I kind of
too late, dude.
Damn it. I have
we've had one vote and you're already regretting it, man.
I know. The gift's so good. The gift also gave us that great joke in Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Where David Krumholtz is watching the gift because he wants to see Katie Holmes topless.
Well, guys, we're in for another, I feel like, slightly heated discussion, because
these are all gonna be heated.
We have a simple plan going up against the Quick and the Dead.
Okay. Interesting. All right. A Simple Plan is film from 1998. The tagline is not very good. It's sometimes good people do evil things, although that does encapsulate the movie very well. This film is 121 minutes long and has an average Letterboxd rating of 3.8, which is quite high.
All right. Quick and the Dead, 1995 film, 107 minutes long, Letterboxd rating of 3.4 with the tagline, "Think you are quick enough?"
Two terrible taglines.
This is particularly tough because these are two movies that I would love to see in the top three. Would love to see both of them in the top three. I know that Nathan is on my side on one of those, at least one of those. Dan is on my side on the other.
All right, so I'll start on this. I love both of these movies. I am not happy about this, and honestly, I have a feeling that there might end up being a chaos card already in the second round, because I really don't want either of these to lose. So I'm going to start with the fact that when I was talking to Dustin Kramer about what we were doing for this punch out, the only thing he said a number of things, but the only specific movie that he talked about was, if A Simple Plan doesn't make it to the end, I'm flipping the table. So there's certainly a lot of CFF love for A Simple Plan.
It's weirdly like, I feel like the one Raimi movie, well, maybe not the one, but it's one of those Raimi movies I feel like not a lot of people talk about. I think largely because it's not available hardly anywhere. Like this movie's only been released on like VHS and DVD. It's never gotten a Blu-ray or 4K release, which is absurd.
Yeah. So
it's rarely ever streaming.
I love both of these movies. This is not necessarily going to be an argument of why I don't think one should win. Like with The Gift, there was a little bit like, yeah, it's great, but come on. With both of these, I adore both of them. A Simple Plan is one of the best non-Coen brothers films. Like it has all of those stylings, which is not surprising with how much Sam Raimi and the Coen brothers work together, especially the early parts of their careers. I think that Raimi does an amazing job with this one. It captures that isolation. Billy Bob Thornton does such a killer job of being, like that simpleton without it straying into like making fun of mental disabilities. He's just kind of
It's a
Simple.
miraculous performance. The fact that he pulls this off is in anybody else's hands, it would be embarrassing.
Yeah.
And
Billy Bob
he
Thornton does such a
gives
good
like
job with it.
the most quietly devastating performance I've ever seen in a movie. He's fucking unbelievable in this movie.
Yeah. I love Coen Brothers films, and through most of A Simple Plan, I was thinking like, I feel like I'd rather just be watching a Coen Brothers movie. Like that's what I kept thinking. But hold on to your head shaking there, Eric. As I was watching it, that's what I was thinking. But by the time I got to the end, the thing that I kept going back to was, if this had been a Coen Brothers movie, it would have been funnier. And that's not saying that there's not humor in it. But with not having some of that Coen Brothers very dark humor, with not having William H. Macy doing some of the bits that he does in Fargo, like with not having some of that Minnesotan very dry humor, this movie is able to feel darker without it necessarily going that much darker. And so when you get to the end, rather than it being like oh yeah, like of course that's the thing that's going to happen and it's tragic, but I mean, come on, there's so much humor throughout. When it gets to the end, you're just like, oh my god, and that moment sits with you, and for me at least, I kept thinking about the entire movie and how easily things were thrown into turmoil by seemingly a very simple plan, and how quickly they went off the rails, and the fact that there is not much humor, and again, not saying it's not funny, but it's not adding in that Coen Brothers style humor, to me is part of what makes this movie absolutely shine. Now, The Quick and the Dead is essentially the Western version of this popcorn punch out.
Yeah.
Also, I fucking love The Quick and the Dead. This was a first time watch for me, and I adored it because it was so contained. You didn't need a lot of that backstory. It was just, here's a shooting gallery, and it's a competition, all because Gene Hackman is pitting people against each other to keep them from attacking him, and Gene Hackman does an amazing job. Like, I think that he. Are you shaking your head? No,
No, I'm
agree, or
100% with you.
shaking?
I
Okay.
think like my review on Letterboxd for this movie is Gene Hackman the greatest actor of all time?
Yes, yes,
Like,
he is.
he's unbelievable.
This movie doesn't need the backstory that it has, and you could just have the immediacy of what you see on screen, and it would be damn near a perfect movie. Leonardo DiCaprio is amazing, especially for how young he is in this movie. Russell Crowe, I feel like not. Yes, no, yes,
What,
yeah,
Russell Crowe? Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
What I
This
was
is his first American film.
for a
Well,
second, I thought that I said
I think
Cameron
it's his first
Crowe, and I was like, no, that's very wrong. Yeah, Russell Crowe does such a good, like, God, everyone in this movie I feel like is doing an amazing performance. I love it. It's one of the few movies that I think like, yeah, I could show this to my dad and it not be weird, because he does not love horror movies the way that I do. um I love everything about this movie, and then when you get some of that backstory as it's leading up to it, it's like, no, no, no. And then when it happens, like, I was shook for a minute. I just had to sit there. It's like, I saw it coming, but still,
Mhm.
you, oh my god. And it changes the movie at that point for me in a way that it didn't need to be changed, but it still changed it for the better. And I honestly don't know which one I'm going to vote for. I know which one is higher in my personal rankings, and these are not right next to each other. They are separated by about 3 movies.
I just realized both movies in this pick, someone, the main character, has to kill someone in their family.
Yep.
This is some dark picks.
Yeah, I love that these two are together because he made these movies back to back. He made The Quick and the Dead in 92. I can't remember now. Shit. 96, and then he made A Simple Plan in 98. And it's fascinating because in some ways I think that The Quick and the Dead is the most Raimi excess. Like, in terms of Raimi going fucking bananas with the camera, The Quick and the Dead is him just pulling out all the goddamn stops. Like, he's doing dolly zoom, Dutch angles. He's doing like whip pans and crash zooms, and like he's just going fucking ape shit. and having the time of his life with the it's hard to say which one is the best cast, but again, a fucking murderer's row of character actors.
You get the shot, kind of like the good, the bad, and the ugly, where it's doing like the zoom ins on the eyes, but it's at Raimi speed, and so it's like zoom, 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 zoom.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's like
you have Lance Henriksen being just a show off
God.
of a gunslinger.
Got Keith David.
Oh my god!
Yeah, Keith David in there. I mean, goddamn, you got Pat Hingle as the like just such a great cast.
Mark Boone Jr. is
Mark Boone Jr. Yeah, so good. And it's the kind of thing where like you watch The Quick and the Dead and you ask yourself like, why aren't there more tournament movies like this? Like, why aren't there more like is it Enter the Dragon? Is that the Bruce Lee one with that's like Mortal Kombat? Like, why are there not more bracket movies? It's such a great like structure to hang a movie on, and Raimi's so good at making all of these shootouts so different and giving every single character in the movie pops. Like, that's the thing that's so great about it, is like,
they all have very different reasons for being in the tournament,
right? And Raimi gives all of them room to shine, to
And
where
none
like
of the shootouts feel repetitive.
yeah, absolutely. It's really a remarkable achievement and one of the great westerns that I feel like doesn't get enough attention.
However, it is not the adaptation that A Simple Plan is. I have read the book. This is a brilliant adaptation of that book, because that book, shit gets even darker.
I gotta read it yet. And Scott Smith does the screenplay too, right? He adapted it himself. Yeah, he did The Ruins too.
He kept out the stuff that would have made it seem a little more pulpy, because there's some stuff in the book where you're just like, oh my god, I can't believe you're going to that point. In the movie, it would have been too much. He knows exactly how to keep it within the realm of reality and possibility. And yes, these are decisions people in these situations would make.
Yeah. It never feels like it's milking the drama in any way, where it always has that verisimilitude that
it always feels like there's an exact reason why a character is making the decision they're making, whether or not it's a good one or a bad one. And it's one of those things where I love the fact that we haven't even mentioned yet, Bill Paxton, in a fantastic role, is just trying to take advantage of a situation to better his family.
Yeah.
And everything goes wrong from there, because, tell two people it's a secret, tell a third person it's out. And Brent Briscoe is the unsung hero of this movie.
He's so good.
He is just perfect as kind of that.
If you live in the South, or if you live in Maine, like where you're at, Dan, you know a Brent Briscoe.
Yeah, I know both Brent and Billy Bob. They're both still in my town, and they're both still drinking at the same bar every Friday and Saturday night. They're both almost always getting into a fight over stupid shit, almost getting, kicked out of their house every weekend for some reason or another, and have that sad dream of desperation that just, if one thing would go their way, their life would finally be good, instead of just, and Billy Bob just gives the greatest thing where he's talking about the family farm and how, you might be able to go and just leave town. I can't. Yeah. What could I do? He has to live the rest of his life in town. And when he realizes the plan's not going to go the way they want it to, it's so heartbreaking.
The scene that he has in the car with Bill Paxton, where he talks about like how the one time he had a girlfriend, and just like the acceptance of his lot in life, and the final bow at the end of it, where he's like, I'm going to be happy now, right? Like, it's just, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It's so heartbreaking. It's so beautiful.
Well, and some of that darkness, like Dan said, with Bill Paxton wanting to do this to better his family, the argument that he has with his wife about halfway through, or 3/4 of the way through, when he's like, oh, you mean how this was a good decision and this was a good decision? In that moment, nothing is ever going to be okay for them ever again.
Yeah.
Because if they keep the money, it's not okay. If they burn the money, they're not okay. If they stay together, they're not okay. If they break up, they're not okay. It's like the darkest timeline of Raising Arizona. And God,
it's so good. I also love too
The
that
shout
there's
out to
no
Bridget Fonda and
Bridget
just
Fonda's, yeah,
so good, and almost a Lady Macbeth type role, where once she gets a sniff of what that money could do for them, she just looks so sweet and loving at the beginning, and she gets cold.
The movie never goes the obvious route where like you expect her to like freak out and be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you do this." But every single time Bill Paxton does something horrifying, she's with him. She's like, we can get through this. Nobody will believe that you're capable of the things you've done. Like, God, there's so many great lines in this movie. This is the best script that Sam Raimi's ever filmed. The script is perfect. This movie's perfect.
Eric, is there anything that you want to add before we vote?
The only thing I want to add is that The Quick and the Dead feels like Raimi getting all of his Raimi excess out of his system before doing A Simple Plan, because A Simple Plan is on the surface does not seem like a Sam Raimi movie at all. It doesn't have hardly any of his signature like camera craziness or excess or anything. And I think it's all the better for it because it feels like Raimi is more like a viper with A Simple Plan, where he like unleashes his more like excessive tendencies at just the right moment for maximum impact. Like the scene at Lou's when they get into it and his wife comes in is just like so gut-wrenching, and that's like the real Raimi touch. And I love the way that he weaponizes his gifts in A Simple Plan. And I also love the way that with Quick and the Dead, he's like, fuck it, I'm not holding anything back. So it's fun that these two are going together, going up against one another. And also heartbreaking because
I think that I've made up my mind. I'm not going to be upset with whichever one moves forward. Whichever one moves forward is the right choice. I'm already thinking I don't know. I don't know if we're about to see a chaos card here or not. Ooh, okay. Are you all ready to vote?
Let's do it.
All right. Video rack attack.
All right. The Quick and the Dead has been shot dead by A Simple Plan. Oh God, I love it. I love it. Listen, fucking love The Quick and the Dead. Nathan's pondering. I'm gonna talk while he's thinking.
I'm seriously considering, because I'm looking at what is left. I've got all the movies here next to me, and I'm looking at them, and I'm trying to decide with what's left. So what's left is the two Evil Dead movies, For Love of the Game, Crime Wave, Darkman, Dragnet,
Oz.
Oz.
The one we're all waiting for. The Great and Powerful.
Yes. Yes.
Itself.
You know what? Fuck it. I'm using my chaos card on the Quick and the Dead.
Thank God, because I was going to use mine if you didn't.
This is why we also have some sort of order in trying to decide, but I'll say things later. I'll not say them now. All right, so Simple Plan moves into the final four, and the Quick and the Dead is going to be in the chaos bracket at the end.
Now I kind of wish I'd used my chaos card on the gift.
I'm so glad that you didn't. All right. Next up, we have two movies. We have For the Love of the Game.
Ooh, interesting.
Going up against The Evil Dead.
Fascinating. Okay, For the Love of the Game is Sam Raimi's film from 1999. Billy Chapel must choose between the woman he loves and the game he lives for. Yeah, this movie is the longest. Oh, and I don't think I don't know if it's a very long. It feels like the longest movie. It's 138 minutes long, and it has an average Letterboxd rating of a 3.0.
The Evil Dead, 1981, the debut film of Sam Raimi, 85 minutes long, a rating surprisingly of only 3.7, and the tagline is the ultimate experience in grueling terror.
It sure is.
So, Eric, you want to go first on this one, since
Sure.
Dan and I went first on the last couple?
Yeah. I'm gonna start with For Love of the Game because I actually kind of like this movie. uh Nathan kind of told me about it a little ahead of time. This is the very last Sam Raimi movie I watched. I just watched it a couple of nights ago. Um, Look, I love Kevin Costner. The guy's a steady hand. I really enjoy him. I think the love story in this movie kind of sucks. But the baseball stuff is so brilliantly done, and it's such a fun structure for a movie where it's like this is like the movie sets up the stakes beautifully right at the beginning. It's like, look, Billy, you have or Kevin Costner, I mean Billy Chapel, you've had a 19-year career in baseball. You're washed up. You're definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame, but the Detroit Tigers are going to be sold, and if it's sold, you're going to be traded to someone else. You've been a Tiger all your life. That sucks. He's about to play his last game of the season, and then his girlfriend is going to take a job overseas and is essentially breaking up with him all in the same day, right before he plays this game. And so like he has this the movie is set in the final game, and he's having all of these flashbacks to their relationship and his career throughout the game. Which is a fun structure. I like that quite a bit. Another fucking phenomenal cast in this movie.
John C.
I
Reilly,
mean,
J.K. Simmons.
John C. Reilly and J.K. Simmons, all the baseball guys. John C. Reilly and Kevin Costner have such great chemistry together. Like it's
John
so
C. Reilly
fun.
was born to play a catcher. He's just got that catcher face.
Perfect.
It's like, yeah, that's a guy who's worn a catcher's mask for a decade. Yep.
Yeah,
I have
100%.
no idea what you mean by that, and also I know exactly what you mean by that.
Yeah.
I also just have a soft spot for baseball. Like I'm not a big sports guy, but I played baseball as a kid. It's my favorite sport to watch. I don't really keep up with it or anything, but like I went to a Chattanooga Lookouts game last night and had a great time. I just love it. And baseball is the most cinematic of sports, I think. Like there's just something about that big field and the intimacy of the game between like the pitcher and the batter and the catcher. Um yeah, Kelly Preston's this movie. She's really okay. Listen, here's the thing. This movie has one of my favorite moments in any Sam Raimi movie because of its absurdity. And there's a scene in this movie where Kevin Costner cuts his hand on like a miter saw or whatever, and he's like bleeding out and they act like he's gonna die. Like they couldn't just make the stakes of it like this guy's a pitcher and he cut his hand, so like it's gonna be hard for him to recover. No, like they fly him out to the emergency room, and Kelly Preston comes in to the room, and she's freaking the fuck out because they won't let her in because they're not married or whatever. And she starts screaming, "Is this not America? Is baseball not America's greatest pastime?" And then people are like, "What the fuck is wrong with this lady?" And then this doctor's like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Are you a doctor? Get in here and help this man. It's Billy Chapel." And it's just the most hysterical, over dramatic thing I've ever seen in a movie, and it is incredible. It's incredible that it exists. I love it so much. Anyway, that's
if this movie had just been their relationship, it would have sucked.
Yep.
Yeah, Kevin Costner is a big asshole in this movie. You don't root for them to get together at all.
Yeah, and Kelly Preston, I just don't really enjoy her very much as an actress. It's just, however, the way Raimi structured this film, or the way the screenwriter structured this film, where everything was intercut with the baseball, it balanced it out just enough for me that is like, okay, I can handle this scene knowing what it's leading to, and then they're going to get right back to the baseball game, which is why we're really there. Because like you, I fucking love baseball movies. This is, and it's odd too, because this is probably the worst Costner baseball film.
Right, yeah. This is the best one to start with because it's all up from here.
I mean, the dude knows how to make good baseball games. I have to wonder if the reason they're Detroit is because Raimi's
a Michigan guy. Yeah,
no one ever picks like Detroit as like their cinematic baseball team. It's very, very rare.
It's weird that Raimi made this movie. I guess he's just a big baseball fan, and he said that he really loved the script, which I don't know.
And this is another film where he really toned down his Raimi-isms. And I feel like if you're making a Kevin Costner film, as a director, you kind of have to let your ego go. Because we all know Costner's going to be running the show.
At this point, Costner had won multiple Oscars for directing. I mean, or won an Oscar for directing Dance with the Wolves and all that stuff. So, and he was a big time. I mean, he was at this point. Costner was untouchable in Hollywood. He could do whatever he wanted. He had final cut. He had final cut over this movie.
Yeah.
Which is funny. There's a great anecdote about how he did a full frontal nude scene in this movie, and the studio forced him to cut it, and he was really mad about it. But they forced him to cut it because he was contractually obligated to have a PG-13. But that's funny that Kevin Costner was like, "God damn it, people need to see my dick in this baseball movie." And you know what? He was right. I'm really
he was in Hollywood. He could make people try to see his dick.
I mean, you can see that he is a dick in this movie.
They're like, we got enough dick. We got enough Kevin Costner dick in here. There is a great Raimi. One great Raimiism in this movie, though, I want to point out. There's a great one. He has this like little catchphrase that he does where he like zones in on stuff, and Kevin Costner says, "Clear the mechanism," which is a really weird catchphrase, but I think it's fun. And then like the movie goes into like super shallow depth of field. Like basically, the background becomes this, like. And then you just get like this ultra close up on his face where he's like really concentrating, and it's like a great way to visualize what it's like to be a pitcher. So I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah. So to echo what both of you were saying, I love the baseball parts of this movie, and I really enjoyed the structure. Like typically, I don't love flashback movies in the same way that I don't always love prequels, because it's like, okay, we already know where things end. Why do we need to see this other stuff? There's no tension, there's no drama, because we know what's going to happen. But the way this movie is structured, and the information that you get moving forward, there are surprises. There are some like, oh wait, what? And like even when the timeline catches back up with the start of the movie, it's like, oh, that's where things were. I thought that like they were gonna reconcile for a while before that. I didn't realize that this was their attempt to at reconciliation. And so I really enjoy the structure. I love the baseball elements of this movie. I really enjoyed, like when he would shut everything out. So everything baseball and the just general structure, and just the fact that Raimi can direct essentially a romance drama with everything else that he's done. It's like, dude can direct. He doesn't always have to be doing over the top, zany, silly stuff. He can direct characters. I want to love this movie for those reasons. But goddamn, I hate the relationship in this movie so much that it is unpleasant to watch for me.
Yeah, Kevin Costner's constantly like blaming Kelly Preston for his mistakes. He's like, "Oh, I took my eye off the ball. That's why I cut my hand, because you're distracting me, and I need you to get out of here so I can be a good pitcher." And it's like, I get where they're going with it, but it doesn't feel
such a dick in
authentic.
This movie. And the way that Kelly Preston responds with just like, "Oh, it's okay, you don't need to apologize." It's like, yes, he fucking does.
It's a very toxic relationship. She's very submissive to him in a way that's frustrating.
Yeah. When he, after he finishes the game, is sitting in his penthouse suite crying on the bed.
Right.
I thought, good.
So good.
He deserves to cry. He does not deserve her.
I mean, I was crying at that point.
I hate their relationship and the way that he treats her, and just so much about that I hate. And unlike you, I don't love Kevin Costner's acting as much. There might be movies where I'm like, okay, in this movie I love it, but in general he's just so, to me, he's so bland that I can't really get on board with it. And then
he has such a compelling screen presence.
God, for me, I disagree. But I'm not the biggest Kevin Costner fan. And so then for his character to be such a dick, and for that relationship to be so toxic, I hate those elements so much. And since that is the core of the movie, no matter how good the acting is, and no matter how good Raimi's directing is in this movie, it's really hard for me to enjoy the movie.
He doesn't get enough of a comeuppance. It's not like Ash being a dick in Army of Darkness, where like he's constantly fucking up and like having to deal with the consequences of his actions. In this movie, Costner gets his fairy tale ending with the triumphant ending of the baseball game, which literally made me cry. Like it was so, I mean, no joke.
First he had the perfect game.
And it's not like he just wins the game either. He I can't remember. It's been a while. Is it? Does he throws a perfect?
He throws
game,
a perfect
right?
game, yeah.
Which
So-
we actually just, oddly enough, we just had one in Major League Baseball last night, but there hadn't been one since 2012 prior to this. Like, perfect games are the rarest feat in baseball.
Well,
And
you don't
here's
think
a
the
guy
Detroit Tigers could throw a perfect game against New York Yankees in Yankee Stadium?
It was the Yankee who threw one last night, who had been terrible the past like 2 years. Baseball that's one of the reasons I love baseball. It is weird and it is poetic. But again, here's a player who has had pretty much a zero redeeming qualities all movie long, and then gets to do one of the most impressive, rare feats in all of fucking sports.
The movie's a little too on his side.
And here's the other thing about that. It's not like he pitched a perfect game and like he is at the top of his game and like has to choose to leave all of that behind for the relationship. It's like, no, my arm is shot. I am done after this. Like I barely throw a softball after this. I can't do anything since I'm gonna retire anyways. Might as well chase after the girl. It's just like
it makes it like he's leaving the game for her, but really he just like he's not making a choice.
Yeah,
it's just, oh great, I don't have this baseball as a distraction now, so it's you that I'll
right. So enough about For Love of the Game.
Yeah.
Evil Dead. I love this movie. It's a perfect movie.
It's the best.
Even with all of its ugly seams, even with as much as you can see, so many things. Just like, oh, yeah, I can see exactly where the paint is. I adore this movie more than I can possibly explain. It is always going to be one of my all-time favorite movies. I got to see it, the 4K restoration, at the Knoxville Horror Film Festival a couple of years ago. There is, even though I understand not everyone's going to love this movie, there is nothing bad that I can say about this movie. Even if there are bad things that could be said about, like, you know, quality or whatever, like how some of the acting is cheesy, I can't say that because of how much I love this movie, how much it means to me. Even though it was not the first Evil Dead movie that I saw, it is just a part of who I am, and it would be lunacy to vote for The Love of the Game over The Evil Dead.
Yeah, The Evil Dead for a long.
The Evil Dead, because to me this is. We might as well talk about For Love of the Game because it's not going to get mentioned again.
We can talk about The Evil Dead. I think that's kind of what it is. We're all focused on that because it's like, well, For Love of the Game, I'm excited that it came out because I do kind of like it more than I expected.
I wanted to talk about it, but it's not beating The Evil Dead. It's just not.
It's the greatest. It's like the story behind The Evil Dead is one of the most incredible, like, wunderkind, like, debuts of any filmmaker or actor ever. Like the way everything that Sam Raimi and Rob Tapper and Bruce Campbell and everybody, like everything they had to do to get this movie made, from like the financing of it to the actual shooting and how hellish it was, and it's just a remarkable achievement. It's amazing that any of it works at all. It's just a total tribute to like these guys and their dedication, their talent, and it's fucking terrifying. It feels dangerous still to this day. It's, and yeah, you can see the seams of it, but again, that's part of the fun of it. Like you can see how much of this movie is kind of held together with spit and duct tape and still be supremely effective and one of the greatest horror movies of all time.
It is a great example of, if you have a great story, if you have passion, if you are like making it because you are devoted to it, then a lot of those little details don't matter. Like if someone was just making, you know, like now Cabin in the Wood movies are a dime a dozen, and a lot of them, some of them are fun, but there's a lot that are just kind of trash because it's just like, oh, okay, Cabin in the Woods, I've seen it before, whatever. What are they doing new this time? And so they just, as much as I love Cabin in the Wood movies, I don't know, there's a lot that are just kind of like,
It's one of those things where like this movie sets the template for it. And usually when you go back and watch the movies that set the template for it, they feel kind of boring in comparison because like, oh, everything has copied this in some way, you know, like it feels like the thing that's reductive or whatever. But like this movie still holds its own. It's perfect.
People tend to forget this is the movie that pretty much created the Cabin in the Woods genre. And the whole, I mean, it created a whole mythos behind it, and it's such a remarkable film that I feel bad that For Love of the Game has to go up against it, but you know, the skull has spoken.
Yep. Well,
maybe we want to make it official.
so
Yeah,
that we
let's
can make it
let's
official
make it.
because we still got a few more to get through, and we're already an hour into the episode. All right, Video Rack Attack.
I'm not even
That
gonna
one. What a
go.
surprise!
I'm not even gonna. I'm not reaching up to the chat. I'm just
A,
gonna say
a
I'm
clean
not.
sweep for the Evil Dead. What if I use my chaos card? Yeah, the Evil Dead has ended Billy Chapel's perfect game, perfect streak, perfect pitching,
You
whatever.
can't strike out a deadite.
Great. I can't wait to talk about it again.
All right, so
Here's
for
our
the
last matchup. Shit.
hearing,
If this comes out, Oz the Great and Powerful versus Crime Wave, I'm going to be so pissed off.
I will be so
so
happy because that's literally the only way
mad.
that Crime Wave is going to be able to advance.
I'd be so mad. Let's see.
Oh, really? Would you vote for Crime Wave over something else?
No.
No, Crime Wave is. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, the good news is we get to talk about Crime Wave.
Oh god. Oh my god. What is it going on?
The better news is that it's going to be losing to Darkman.
Ooh, nice.
Okay, yeah. I was hoping it would be. Yeah, and it's crazy that Evil Dead 2 did not come out of the skull. We'll talk about that in a minute, but okay. Wait, I'm doing Crime Wave, right? Yep,
Yeah,
okay.
you
Jeez.
are.
All right, Crime Wave. Sam Raimi's second film, 1985. Extermination is not just a business, it's a way of life. Yeah, this movie is 83 minutes long. Another brief Raimi film. With an average Letterboxd rating of 2.8.
Surprisingly high for this movie.
Darkman, 1990 film, 95 minutes long. Letterboxd rating of 3.3. They destroyed everything he had, everything he was. Crime has a new enemy, and justice has a new face.
Oh, good stuff. All right.
So,
yeah, Crime Wave. I'm glad that it came out of the skull because at least I have a fucking at least there's a reason I watched this movie. Makes me feel better about
let me talk about Crime Wave because I might be the only one of the three of us who actually enjoys it. Here's the thing about Crime Wave. It's not a good movie. I'm not going to argue that it's a good movie. It is a rather bad movie. There are many things about it that are just like, oh, come on. Like, I know it's your second movie, but I mean, come on. You've got to know better than some of this. It just isn't good. However, it's written by the Coen brothers, or co-written by Coens and Sam Raimi. It has Bruce Campbell playing a complete dick, which is fun. And the story,
his name is like the heel for so many.
Yes, he is literally the heel of the movie.
Bruce Campbell is actually pretty good in this movie.
So, as you know, I love some trashy cinema. I love movies that do not get love because I want to, talk about why they're not as bad as people think. I want to share the love of movies that maybe don't get as much love, maybe deservedly, maybe undeservedly. But I love movies that are not necessarily good. And Crime Wave is one of these movies. It's not good, but I did have a lot of fun watching it. And especially once you get past some of the opening scenes, like once it gets probably about 20 minutes into it, it's a little bit better. Also, it has Louise Lasser from Blood Rage, which is always a plus. The thing about Crime Wave is it is a dark crime comedy. And with it being as early in Raimi's career as it was, he did not know how to balance it appropriately. He was still going way too far into the over-the-top zany Raimi stuff. And so, like the two assassins, rather than them being, like the two characters in Raising Arizona, which are over the top, but one of them being played by John Goodman, and so it's a lot more grounded. They're cartoon characters. Like the two
speak in very cartoony voices, and the sound effects.
Voice was nails on chalkboard every time.
Yeah.
he sounded. You're talking about the kind of Weasley one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian James.
He literally felt like watching a live action version of one of the cartoon weasels from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And like
Which,
it,
I mean, if
he
that's
was
what you're
making a
going
live
for,
action
it's like
cartoon.
sort of successful. I feel like this movie's too dark to be a cartoon. Like
That's
too much of the comic relief is put on like the villains of this movie, and also none of it's fucking funny. There
I
are like
disagree that none
three
of it's
jokes in
funny.
this movie. There are like three jokes in this movie that I laughed at.
I disagree that none of it is funny, but yeah, the problem is the tone. It is way too dark to be funny. You know, because like there are murders going on. You have people being electrocuted with a little portable electrocution system. You have
Oh, I do like the joke about how they
that
change
bit was
it.
funny with the dial. Yeah.
The
yeah,
dial,
The
yeah.
funny stuff in the film was never in the dialogue.
right.
It was always like when she's making an escape through the hall of doorways,
Yeah,
and is just
the
continually running through the
Full
doorways.
sequence.
it's
That
it's the
joke is
safest hallway
funny.
in the world. It's called the I wrote it down here. Oh shit, I can't pull it up quick as
Well,
I
well,
thought I could.
as you're
The
trying to
parade
find
of
that,
protection.
Yeah.
The safest hallway in the world.
so when
Yeah.
That's
Louise
a fun
Lasser,
sequence.
when she is running through the hallway, she's not just like running and slamming the door behind her. She's like twirling at every single one, and so the cadence that she has as she's running through the doors,
Mhm.
I think that is hilarious. The way that it is shot is beautiful. It looks great. The last half of this movie almost saves the movie for me. Like,
Yeah, that final car chase is really well done. It's
Mhm.
really fun.
well,
Very
once
silly.
once they don't talk as much, it's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a
I
silent film, this film would have been brilliant.
The visual stuff is always great. Like it's got that great like creep show-esque EC comics like red and blue hue to everything, which is really fun. Like it looks, I mean, despite how like I don't know, it's still it's in that it almost feels like a precursor to the kind of like Art Deco-y comic booky style that was coming up with things like Batman and
it's the kind of
Dick
stuff that you can look,
Tracy
I was
and
just about to say Dick Tracy.
that kind of stuff. It's all done on a backlot, which looks pretty good for the most part. It's just that one street corner. You know, the craft behind it, you can see that Raimi is really like taking advantage of having studio money for the first time. It's clear that the movie is kind of taken away from him, but even then, I don't feel like this movie works in any
But again, for me
way.
at least, it could have. It was so close to working, but it was that
Yeah.
it was too over the top and too Raimi-esque rather than having a lot more of that Cohen groundedness. You know, like if the Coens had directed this, not changing anything other than just how they were presenting what the movie was, I think this would have been a great Coen Brothers movie. But Raimi is being too over the top and zany, and so it doesn't quite work that way when some of the
Yeah, there are no
could
stakes
have
to anything in this movie.
Mhm.
right. Well, and it's too dark to be just a straight silly comedy. If this had been an Ernest movie, like if Ernest had been the main protagonist and people weren't dying, I might have loved it because again, I love I love Ernest movies. I love that kind of cinema among lots of other kinds, and so that for me was the biggest problem with Crime Wave. There were parts that were great. There were parts that were beautifully shot. There's a lot of Raimi's skill that you can see on display, but it was too zany to be a dark comedy. It was too dark to be zany. It was too over the top to have a grounded center, and it was too high of stakes for some of the jokes to really land. It I just yeah, the
Yeah, it's
tone
like they
of it
want
didn't
you
make
to
any sense.
feel like the characters are in peril, but again, because of the cartoon logic that is very like inconsistently applied. You know, it's like you look at something like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you've got fucking Doom dipping the shoe in the acid, and you immediately know what the stakes are.
Yeah.
You know that these tunes are in danger. In this movie, it's like you can have people fall out of a building and survive, or be hit by a car and survive, but then die because the electric wand was turned to human instead of rodent, or and then they flip it to hero, which is funny. Um,
So yeah, I don't hate Crime Wave. There are probably there are at least two movies that if it had gone up against them, I would have voted for Crime Wave. maybe 3. But
What
the
are-
third one would have just been just kind of to fuck with y'all.
Hmm.
If it had gone up against Oz, or if it had gone up against For Love of the Game, I would have voted for Crime Wave.
I could have
Man.
been convinced over Oz easily.
Oh, Oz, I could have been convinced maybe. Yeah, Oz has some fun moments, but that movie feels like that's the only time that it doesn't feel like Raimi's trying, which I don't want to put on him because I'm sure
No,
Raimi's
it
such a
feels
consummate
like the
professional.
biggest
But
work for hire of all of his work.
yeah, for sure.
So yeah, those are all of my thoughts on Crime Wave, and I assume all that really needs to be said about it. Which one of you wants to make the very obvious case for Darkman?
I would say we just go to vote because we're going to talk about Dark.
We'll talk about Darkman later. Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, we'll push that back because this one's a no-brainer for me anyway.
Fair enough. All right. Yeah, Darkman is amazing and wonderful, and we will talk about it more when it comes back up. So, Video Rack Attack.
Hey, look,
Shocking.
Darkman wins.
Darkman won.
Woo. Darkman triumphed over the. Oh, I mean, look, it makes sense that Darkman triumphs over crime. It's funny. These are the two movies that fit. Like Darkman also fits in that.
Darkman would have belonged in that universe, I think.
Well, yeah, Darkman like is the movie that Sam Raimi made because he didn't get to do the. Is it the Shadow or the Phantom? I can't remember.
Shadow.
I think he want to do the Shadow. Yeah, so he's like, fuck it, I'm gonna make Darkman instead. So yeah, like it fits. Crime Wave feels like it's like, hey, I'm gonna do a trial run on some of these ideas and then fully flesh them out with that movie. So
I
good on you, Darkman.
I almost voted for Crime Wave as a joke, but I was worried that one of you, Eric, also would have voted for Crime Wave as a joke.
Nathan, I wouldn't vote for Crime Wave if
I take joke votes.
Yeah, I don't do joke votes generally. But you couldn't pay me to vote for Crime Wave. I really had. It's an interesting curio if you're a Sam Raimi. It's interesting that like a movie co-written by Sam Raimi and the Coen Brothers is one of the worst movies I've seen, or at least pleasurable experiences I've had watching a movie.
It is my lowest ranked Raimi film, even though I think I would rewatch this before I'd rewatch Oz again. Oz is the better film, but yeah, Crime Wave ranked Raimi.
Maybe. Crime Wave does have a bit more.
Crime Wave is my number 10
out of 15.
No,
just the 11.
Out of the 11.
Oh, out of the 11. Okay, I was like, wait a minute. Out of his whole filmography?
No.
Of course, yeah, we're not doing
out of the 11. All right, so that means that the 3 movies that did not make it out of the skull, that very sadly do not now have a chance to make it to the top 3 Raimi films, are 2 of my favorite Raimi films: Evil Dead 2, Drag Me to Hell, and Oz the Great and Powerful. Oz Great and Powerful, it's not much we need to say about that one. I don't hate it. It is a perfectly fine kids movie.
Yeah.
That would have been a lot better were it not Oz. Take that IP off of it, and it is a fun early, like it is a fun Raimi kids movie, fantasy adventure. Just take Oz out of it, and I don't hate it.
Yeah.
With
it's the
Oz
best of the like Alice in Wonderland style. Before Disney started doing all the like direct remakes, whenever they were doing more like spiritual successors and new twists on the stories, I think this is like between this and Maleficent and stuff, I feel like Oz is the best of those. But I like the aspect ratio change and stuff. Like there's some fun ideas in it, but
it's fun. It's just if you have ever seen The Wizard of Oz, there's so much about it that like the tones are so wildly different that it's hard to connect the two. Which again, take the IP off of it and have it just be a random fantasy movie. I think it's fun. I think it's fun.
It's the one movie where that feels like it doesn't have the right cast in place.
Yeah.
No, I did not enjoy James Franco in this. I feel like
sleepwalks through this thing.
Yeah, exactly. Michelle, the witches were all, I think, good casting. Especially Michelle Williams. She's just always delightful.
Michelle Williams is good. Mila Kunis is maybe a little miscast, but she does what she can. Yeah. She's not like James Franco, who doesn't give a shit that he's there at all. But
yeah,
Mila Kunis is at least trying.
And then Drag Me to Hell. I love this movie. I love it so much. Honestly,
yeah,
I'm
bummer.
kind of glad that it didn't make it out of the skull because I would have had some real hard choices of whether or not to keep voting for that one over other movies. And I didn't. I don't think that I said this in the episode so far, but I know that I told both of you beforehand. I only want one Evil Dead in the top three, and even though for me, Drag Me to Hell is an Evil Dead movie, I would have said no. It's totally not an Evil Dead movie if I would have been
You would
able.
be willing to compromise your
Exactly.
convictions for that one, yeah.
It's so much fun. It's so good. It felt like Raimi saying, "Oh, y'all think that I lost it? Nope, I can still deliver." It is a straight up horror movie with so many great comedic elements.
And deliver it as a PG-13 horror
Yeah,
film when it hit theaters. It's like that's pretty
It's
impressive.
yeah.
it's one of the best PG-13 horror movies ever because like Raimi realizes like, hey, what you have to do is trade out like blood for other types of bodily
Other,
fluids and
other,
viscera.
yeah.
Like just have people vomiting on each other and taking out their
The
teeth and
the car fight with the old gypsy woman is beautifully disgusting. Every single scene with the dead gypsy attacking the lead actress is just
yeah, gumming Alison
comedy
Lohman's
gold.
Yeah.
lower jaw and leaking the cremation fluid, or not cremation, but the embalming fluid
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
for far too long all over her.
it is
Yeah.
Plus,
it is
as much as I dislike a lot of the CG, that fucking goat. I would watch a movie of just that goat.
Which that goat was the thing they built actually. I think the only thing CG about it is its
Hey,
face, part of its
yeah,
face, yeah, but like the
yeah.
goat
When
is really great.
talking, so yeah, but oh my god, that goat was fucking
So
awesome.
good. Well, I mean, and also just one of the greatest endings of any horror movie ever.
yeah.
Like a movie that just absolutely fulfills the promise of that title
Hmm.
in a way that you don't expect it to.
So much so that I had forgotten until rewatching it again. And spoilers, but whatever. Even if we're spoiling it, go watch it. This movie is fucking amazing. The cover of Drag Me to Hell has her in her new coat. When you see her buy the new coat, you should be saying, "Oh, that's what's on the cover of the movie."
That's
Like
the
they
coat you
spoil
want.
the movie with the it's
Yeah,
they tell you
and
what's
they
gonna happen.
set up that twist in like one of the very first scenes of the film, and then let you completely forget about the envelope with the nickel in it.
Yep.
Like they
And
just let you forget about that
Yeah.
the entire time.
So much so that I still didn't, it took me a minute to realize, like, I actually had to look it up later. I was like, wait a minute, what? Honestly, it would have been fun even if, like, I love that this movie, it's so great because, like, everything that Christine is trying to do is just like, she goes to see Dilip Rao and he's just like, yeah, I don't fucking know. I mean, like, try these bunch of different things and hope it works. So, like, when she
Mhm.
goes and gives the thing back to the woman after she's dead, which is another brilliant sequence, like, who knows if it would have even worked anyway? Like, it's just,
yeah,
oh, it's so good.
I
Mhm.
adore Drag Me to Hell. I
It's, I
it
think it's
needed
actually a great companion piece to A Simple Plan. Like, these are the two, like, most overt morality tales. Like,
yep,
they're the most, like, Tales from the Crypt kind of style storytelling he's done in terms of a be careful what you wish for kind of scenario, and it's all in favor of like two ostensibly good people who are willing to kind of screw other people over to get ahead in life, uh whether that means get a bunch of money or be middle management at a bank. Which I love the how low the stakes are for Christine. It's so good. Anyway, sorry.
Drag Me to Hell is so high on my list that it was the reason for my hesitation of whether or not to use a chaos card for Quick and the Dead. Was
Ooh.
I didn't know what Drag Me to Hell was going to go up against, or if at all, and I didn't know if it would win because I don't know if the two of you love it quite as much as I do. So
It's middle of the pack for me. It's a middle of the pack.
It's on my
I understand.
on my long list, it is actually like pretty square in the middle, but that includes the
Yeah.
Spider-Man movies. So without the Spider-Man movies, it would be my number uh five,
It actually
six.
moves up once I start including my Spider-Man movies.
It's my number 4. So it would even so like even if I had my top rankings, it would have also fallen like just outside of it. And then Evil Dead 2, which man, I'm really sad that one didn't make it out. It is the perfect balance of horror comedy because it's not scary, but it is so gory and so over the top that it's almost like there's some splash damage of horror. It's like, oh, it's so gory that it's almost traumatizing. And the humor just is perfect. One of my favorite scenes, it's such a minor scene, but one of my favorite scenes is when Bruce Campbell is running away from the Deadites and he's running through the cabin. And it's just like, okay, this is impossibly big. You
Yeah,
are
it's
running
so
through
good.
more space in the cabin than what is physically possible. I love it. I love everything about this
So
movie.
brilliant.
Mhm.
It's the best like nightmare logic. It's like up there with something like Suspiria in a weird way of a movie that unfolds with a kind of nightmare logic that doesn't ever really make sense,
Mhm.
but makes perfect sense within the context of the film and never feels like it's cheating in any way. I don't know if that's a good way to describe it, but yeah, like it's just so brilliant. And Bruce Campbell gives his greatest like physical performance. I might have said that about Army of Darkness, but I'm thinking about Evil Dead 2 again, and it's like that's the real like that's Bruce Campbell like elevating himself up to like Buster Keaton, Charlie
Yeah,
Chaplin levels of
yeah. This is
physical
the film that put him
prowess.
the physical ringer.
Yeah.
Especially like, if you ever read If Chance Could Kill, this is the film. I don't know how we didn't kill him making this movie.
Yeah,
I do
it's
love
brilliant.
when he's driving back after seeing that the bridge is all crumpled and the tree branch like comes in and punches him in the face. I love that is Sam Raimi holding the tree branch, hitting his best friend in the face.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. I love it.
so good. I love that like Bruce Campbell is just he looks like he's like the such a handsome man, and he just looks like he could bully the shit out of Sam Raimi. You know, like when you see them standing next to each other, it looks like he would be the jock that gives Sam Raimi a wedgie. But like it's the other way around, and Bruce Campbell's the one who's showing up and just like, okay, Sam, what do you want me to do next?
Keep
Sam's like, all right, we're gonna put you in a harness and hang you upside down for 6 hours and beat the shit out of you with tree branches. And he's like, all right, whatever you say.
Yeah, so it is a shame that Evil Dead 2 did not make it out of the skull, but obviously all three of us adore that movie. It very easily
It's
could have
fine.
been.
I mean, I feel like it's kind of the obvious number one for most people. So like the fact that
Shirt
it's
I'm
not on
wearing.
here. Do what?
No, it's it's the shirt I'm wearing tonight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say for most people it's number one. It's actually my number four Sam Raimi movie.
Ooh,
It
interesting.
is my number two, but it often switches places with
Yeah.
another film that's
My
currently
top four
on
Sam
it.
Raimi movies are
Still,
pretty
still alive.
When we
yeah,
get to the
they're pretty
end, we
interchangeable.
can go through our Raimi rankings. All
Yeah,
right.
let's
So
do it. All
that
right, we gotta
means
move.
in round two, in our final four, we have Army of Darkness, A Simple Plan, The Evil Dead, and Darkman, with The Quick and the Dead waiting for us, much like Gene Hackman waiting at the end of the movie. Hopefully, it does not reach the same fate because reasons. All right. So up first in our final four, we have Evil Dead going up against. This is appropriate. Going up against Army of Darkness.
Perfect.
Oh,
That
great.
makes me so fucking happy.
Yep.
I mean,
Ooh, except that means that A Simple Plan's going up against Darkman, and
Okay with that.
ooh, I don't know which one I'm going to vote for.
I wish that these were if I'm just gonna if A Simple Plan had been going up against The Evil Dead, that would have been a real pickle for me.
Yeah, that was
This is
my nightmare scenario.
yeah, which might have been more dramatic for us.
Well, also remember, because there's only one movie in the chaos bracket right now, the two losers are going into chaos. So
Yeah.
so the chaos bracket is going to be The Quick and the Dead, Army of Darkness, and then
It's too
whatever
bad.
loses between.
Gonna get to use my little chaos card here. It says "Hell to the Chaos, baby."
Love it.
Very nice.
You like my little, you can tell that this is like an actual quote, and I didn't just put the word chaos over king.
Right. Totally what
I
happened.
made a physical. I'm just gonna keep this and use it for future punch outs.
I think it needs to be a T-shirt.
I would love it.
I
Yeah,
think it needs
official
to be
Video
tattooed.
Monsters merch would just be taking quotes and putting the word chaos in appropriate places.
I mean, that wouldn't be incorrect. All right. Obviously, The Evil Dead is going to win. But anything else that
Is
we
it obvious, Nathan?
dude?
For me, it is.
I mean, Army of Darkness you did make a very compelling argument about it being the kind of the cornerstone of all of Raimi's influences. It's I mean, The Evil Dead is much higher on my, and again, it's been my number one. It was my number one all the way up until I rewatched a bunch of Sam Raimi movies, and then something usurped it. But
The
yeah,
Evil Dead is infinitely more important.
it's true.
Army of so
Army
as
of
much
Darkness is
as
more like broadly entertaining. Army of Darkness is like the Evil Dead movie I would probably show my children
Yeah,
first.
that's it's baby's first Evil Dead movie. You know.
yeah,
Yeah.
and as much as I love Army of Darkness, as much fun as I have with it, as much as I'd very happily rewatch it right now, it also is, especially between these two, um, it is one of Raimi's films that is the easiest to just have on in the background and not pay attention to, because there's not as many stakes to the movie. There's not really much character development. There's just kind of a lot of sequences, most of them involving Bruce Campbell doing very, very physical comedy, which again I love and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, the
But
Bruce Campbell element is really weighing heavily on me because I want good Bruce Campbell representation. And I don't think you really get.
but we're not doing a Bruce Campbell punch out. We are
I
doing
know,
a
but
Sam Raimi punch out.
Bruce Campbell's such an integral part
I
of
don't know if you knew.
this.
He's still the only survival in Evil Dead. He's the final girl still, so he still has a pretty big part to
But you
play.
don't get the brilliant physical performance of him, like, having to fight off a bunch of tiny versions of himself. And like when you see Bad Ash growing out, like you see the eyeball coming out of it. I mean, like he does such a good job of just setting up everything where you understand exactly what is what. Like when Bad Ash comes out and you see them facing each other, despite the fact that it's just two Bruce Campbells, you know exactly which one is Bad Ash and which one is Good Ash just by the way that he is carrying himself. And I think that's kind of an underrated aspect. Like that's a difficult thing to pull off as an actor. And he also plays the fucking villain guy at the end with all the makeup and shit. Like this is such a Bruce Campbell showcase.
Oh, dude, I adore Army of Darkness.
And I only want one Evil Dead movie. I mean, look, all right, you know what? It's fine. It's
The-
fine.
Look, if this were Evil Dead versus or The Evil Dead versus The Evil Dead 2, then we would have a debate on it.
That'd be a tough one, yeah.
Yep.
This one, there is no question we have a deep and unabiding love for Army of Darkness. There's also no question that it's not better than The Evil Dead. So let's go ahead and make this official, and hopefully the two of you aren't just fucking with me, because that would be
funny, actually.
all right. Let's see if this is going to go the way that it's supposed to. Are you ready to enter your votes?
Yep.
All right. Video Rack Attack.
Oh, look, a clean sweep for the Evil Dead. I was just playing devil's advocate, guys. I mean, Army of Darkness grew on me a lot, but it's no The Evil Dead. Also, The Evil Dead fucking Tennessee movie. Like, I can't vote. This movie was shot like an hour and a half away from where Nathan and I live. So I mean,
and we're doing this for the Chattanooga Film Festival. Like, I mean,
this is the ultimate, like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like scrappy as fuck kind of festival, or movie, and I feel like that just is a perfect embodiment of the love of the Chattanooga Film Fest and how much is just like put together by a bunch of people who are donating their time and efforts to a love of cinema. And yeah, it's perfect representation of Sam Raimi and Chat Film Fest. So of course it had to be The Evil Dead.
Has to be. All right, that means that we are left with Darkman and A Simple Plan.
Mhm.
And I have no idea which one I'm going to vote for. So the two of you try to sway my vote.
Well, I'll just throw out some love for Darkman since we didn't talk about it before. Other than probably Batman Returns, it is the best 90s superhero film for me.
Yeah.
It's just an astoundingly fun film. It's pulpy goodness with. I'm having a hard time listening to trying to picture Sam Raimi convincing Liam Neeson to say some of the shit he has to say in this movie, because Liam Neeson just always seems like such a serious actor that, you know, this is, you know, 3 years before he does Schindler's List. He's in Darkman. And, you know, Frances McDormand, you know, another Academy Award winning actress, just goofballing it up in this film and just taking everything to 11.
Yeah, I mean, this scene that is my background currently
oh my
is
God.
one of the most incredible. Is it the pink elephant thing? It's been a minute since I've seen that
county fair scene.
Yeah, it's so good. Just absolutely bananas that he's got these two.
This doesn't relate to Liam Neeson. However, I do want to highlight the first line of dialogue of Darkman, because he's an asshole. Tell him no. Tell him no too. Him, tell fuck you.
Yeah, that's a perfect encapsulation of this film. Because I feel like this is, like we mentioned it before, you know, Raimi wanted to do The Shadow, wasn't able to do it. They let Alec Baldwin make it instead, and so he just went out and made something cooler, you know, which spawned 2 other movies. And am I mistaken? Did it also have a TV show at one point?
I think so.
A TV show?
Maybe. What's the there was like a TV pilot, I think they did a pilot that also had what's his face who plays Durant in this movie. I cannot think of his name. Dr. Giggles. Larry Drake, yeah. Which, it's such a funny thing that like this spawned a series that Larry Drake picked up the mantle for.
Yeah, and had like Jeff Fahey in.
I mean, Darkman is the kind of movie that like hits so many bullet points of things that I love. It's a
TV film movie. Yeah,
it's okay, gotcha. But yeah, it's like a pilot,
unaired pilot.
Yeah, I guess it just wasn't picked up or something, which is interesting. A Darkman TV series would be fun. I feel like it was a little too early. You could probably do a Darkman TV series now, and it would rock.
Well, it was made before the 2 sequels, so it's like they tried to make it a movie.
They pivoted to direct to video sequels. That's interesting. But yeah, Darkman is like a film noir universal monster movie that's also a superhero movie, a 90s superhero movie, which is like my favorite era of superheroes, because it's all like, for whatever reason, I get like when Tim Burton made Batman, they're like, oh, I know what the kids want. Fucking 40s like radio serial heroes.
I mean, there was also a side-scrolling video game of Darkman.
But that's incredible
for Nintendo. It looks like they just used a lot of the backgrounds from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game.
Oh man, that sounds so good. That Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, so good.
I'm gonna have to find that game.
There's so many great like matte paintings in this movie, and like great beautiful sets. It does my favorite 90s trope, which is villains die by falling off of high things, which is just the best thing about the 90s action movies and stuff.
It has my favorite 90s trope of villains hiding machine guns in their fake leg.
Yeah.
I love that guy just keeps fucking hopping for the rest of the scene.
Oh god, it escalates so quickly at the beginning of the movie. It's so good. Yeah, you got arbitrary countdowns for, you know, reconstructed faces. I love the final reveal that like Darkman became Bruce Campbell. Yeah, Liam Neeson, Frances McDormand in this movie is so good. It's just a blast, man. This movie's so much fun, and also it feels kind of like what Crime Wave should have been, you know, like where it balances that like comic book energy and some fun humor with the genuine darkness, and
it's
a great revenge story.
Goes dark with it.
Yeah, it's really wonderful.
All right, make your case for A Simple Plan.
A Simple Plan is my favorite Sam Raimi movie. I think it's absolutely brilliant. There's a part of me that kind of hates it's my favorite Sam Raimi movie because it's the one where he restrains himself the most. But again, I think it's the secret weapon to it, because he's restraining himself visually to make to like really hone in on these very real, very grounded characters. Um, and I think that what really shines through, I think Sam Raimi is one of the best directors of all time at escalation, at just like putting together the building blocks of tension of a scene where things just constantly cycle into. I mean, that's the cornerstone of the Evil Dead franchise. Those are just a series of bits, especially Evil Dead 2 is just a series of bits with Bruce Campbell doing crazy shit and crazy shit happening to him and it just getting crazier and crazier as it goes along. And A Simple Plan is the perfect marriage of Sam Raimi's ability to escalate tension and make things get crazier and crazier, and but rooted in these characters that you deeply care for and you want them to do the right thing, despite like how horrible what it is that they're, the horrible things that they're doing. And like, I mean, you think about the scene where you have them going back out to the plane and the old man comes up on the snowmobile and, Billy Bob Thornton doesn't know what to do. And this is a mild spoiler for A Simple Plan. This is a movie that I feel like everybody should see. If you've never seen it, please go watch it. But like, Billy Bob Thornton hits him. Bill Paxton thinks he's killed him, and then they're going to go try and like stage the body so it looks like an accident. And on the way there, it turns out he's not dead, and Bill Paxton is then forced to kill him himself.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's just the kind of brilliant, like, constantly putting these characters in these really difficult situations to decide like if they're willing to go that far to make a better life for themselves, and the way that they have to constantly compromise their values for this thing. Because like, I love that the movie begins with Bill Paxton and his like very half-hearted like, you're supposed to work for the American dream, not steal it. And it's like, bitch, that's not how this works. Like, you're fooling yourself if you think that's what the American dream is. And that's what's brilliant about it, is it's like he's lived in this like bubble of like, yeah, if I'm a good man and I work hard and my hardware store, feed store or whatever, I can make a good life for myself and my family. But then he
And
sees
then
this temptation.
yeah, and then his
Has this
wife
temptation.
completely like uses that against him towards the end of the film. It's like, how happy will I be working in this library for the rest of my life?
Right, yeah.
How happy will you be waiting until he either dies or retires before you can take over?
Yeah.
This is how happy will our child be with hand-me-down clothes and hand-me-down toys?
Yeah, something that they would have been perfectly content with had this,
Or at
opportunity
least
not.
it would have always been unspoken that maybe they're not as happy as they should be.
Like I said when we were talking about it earlier, when it gets to the point where he finally not lashes out, but like responds with the, oh, like this was a good idea. And that moment, nothing is going to work for them. Whatever happens next is the wrong thing.
Mhm.
It's a powerful movie.
Oh,
Right. So here's where I am at. A Simple Plan is a better movie. Darkman is a more fun and more rewatchable movie. Not saying that Simple Plan isn't rewatchable, but A Simple Plan, like, you watch it and you are in the movie and like you are like watching the movie. Darkman I can throw on right now, and who cares if I miss some of the plot? It's more fun. It's more rewatchable in that sense.
I'm not sure if saying that you don't have to pay attention to it is the compelling argument.
What I mean is, you know how like with some movies that
Yeah.
like you need to pay attention to
Mhm.
get the most enjoyment out of it, whereas other movies like you can just have fun with it. Darkman is one of those. Like you can have fun with it, like you don't have to be in the mood to watch Darkman. You kind of have to be in the right mood to watch Simple Plan, kind of. And again, A Simple Plan I think is better. Darkman I think is more fun. And I don't know which way I'm leaning, but that is my thought. All right, are the two of you ready to vote?
Yeah, I'm fully ready.
All right, I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen, but
God, I'm so excited about this.
God,
Look at Nathan; he's agonizing over this.
no, I'm trying.
You just know you're just
I know what's going to happen. I'm just thinking through the next steps, but it doesn't matter because let's do this first. All right. Video rack attack. Yep.
Oh man, look, a simple plan has defeated Darkman, left Darkman in the darkness. It was simple, really. God,
It was the plan all along.
this is so pleasing to me.
Yep.
I'm so happy that this happened. I had it,
Me
Dan. I
too.
asked, is a simple. Well, okay, hold on. Before I ask you this, we have one other decision to make
Yeah,
before we
We
have
have,
the
not-
we
chaos
have two
round.
more. We have
I'm
two
not
more
revealing-
decisions to make.
Okay, go ahead.
First one is between Evil Dead and Simple Plan. We have to vote on which one is number one.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, so we're voting on between 1 and 2. So between Evil Dead and A Simple Plan, we'll just do a quick vote of which one makes the top of the list.
I
Actually-
will now give this away. A Simple Plan is my favorite Sam Raimi film as well.
Oh man, but is it the best Sam Raimi
Watch
film?
Eric. Watch Nathan take some deep breaths with that sentence.
A lot of deep breaths. Look, let's vote, and then I'll say some things when we go through our rankings.
All right.
Man, this is actually really tough because these are my top two. These are my
Do
My
you
guys.
want me to try to convince you before we vote, or do you want to vote and then we can debrief it a little bit?
Interesting. I know what I'm gonna do. I know what I'm gonna do.
Okay. All right. So let's vote for which one is number one. Video rack attack.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
A Simple
Mhm.
Plan is officially the Video Monsters pick for the number one Sam Raimi film. Oh god, it brings me so much joy. Here's my rationale, and it's a very simple.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
My very simple rationale is I did not want Sam Raimi's first movie to be his best movie because I think that undersells his abilities as a filmmaker.
That's fair. I was voting based off of importance. Like Simple Plan is great. I don't think it's as important in a number of areas as the Evil.
No, it's definitely not as important.
Which is also kind of the thing I like about like it's such an unsung masterpiece of like not only Sam Raimi's career but like of 90s cinema in general.
Yeah, 90s neo noir.
Yeah.
It's criminally ignored.
Another
And
one of my favorite genres.
why is this not in a special edition Blu-ray or 4K by this point?
Yeah.
You know, I've got stuff from Imprint which has Mortal Thoughts in a neo noir Blu-ray pack. Why is A Simple Plan not available?
Yeah, it really should be. And one of the things that I love about A Simple Plan topping the list is it is one of the movies that goes against what you expect of Raimi. It doesn't have the extreme humor or the extreme violence or the extreme camera movements. Like I love that it's the least Raimi-esque of the ones that we still have to vote on. But it is the most in terms of like showing his actual range and ability
Right.
and showing that he is a great director and not just a really fun horror director. So I'm not
Yeah, it's just that he really can work with any genre and knock it out of the fucking park, unless it's a baseball movie.
Yeah. I'm not upset by it at all. I'm not upset. I mean, come on. I love The Evil Dead. I wanted it to be at the top. I'm not upset. All right, so that means in our chaos round, I love that we have Darkman, The Quick and the Dead, and Army of Darkness.
It's a good trio to be in there.
It is, yeah.
And here's why I love that these are the three at the end. We're gonna have a variety of Raimi. So we have like the darker, more stoic Raimi in Simple Plan. We have a horror Raimi in The Evil Dead. And then we're going to have more action-y and comedy in either Darkman, Quick and the Dead, or Army of Darkness. Like
Those are kind of like his three big, most like broadly appealing movies outside of the Spider-Man. Like those are all kind of like in various ways his trial run for his, more mainstream success with something like Spider-Man.
All right. So I have the three of those in these three. So we have purple, green, and black. Dan, do you want purple, green, or black?
Black.
All right. And then Eric, purple or green?
Let's go with green.
All right. Let's see what the two of you have just done.
What we have wrought.
What you hath wrought is
Opening the balls there, like the Book of the Dead, like the Necronomicon.
you
I'm gonna read it aloud.
you have the quick and the dead versus the undead. Army of Darkness versus the quick and the dead.
Oh man, this is interesting. Dan, I'm curious where Dan leans. I feel like I know where Nathan's going.
I'm very sad that Darkman is not in the top 3. Very sad about that. Very sad.
Yeah.
Okay. I definitely know where my vote is going.
I actually am pretty set with my vote too, because I also took an oath there would only be one Evil Dead film in our top 3. As long as we got one in there, whatever one got in there, I was going to be happy with. I was kind of hoping for the Quick and the Dead versus Darkman showdown.
Yeah, I was too.
Really, that one would have been a little more tough.
Which one was Army of Darkness in? Was it green or black? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Oh shit. I was wanting to know which one of us was responsible for this bullshit.
I'll take the blame.
Look, man, there's that healthy.
I always make the wrong choice for these. I feel
like we. That's why I hate that Nathan makes us pick ourselves, because then I'm like, damn it,
responsible.
Have to be responsible. Have to take be accountable for that.
That's why I love to make the two of you pick.
Yeah, do we want to go ahead and vote and then discuss it afterward, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
thoughts?
pretty sure we're all on board with this, but let's go ahead and vote, and then we can discuss why. I have to write out all the words. Okay. Video Rack Attack.
Hold on. All right, I just wrote one word.
Not very quick on the draw there, Dan.
No, I would have just gotten shot in the head. Where did it even go? It disappeared. Damn it.
Gone, yeah. Well, I mean, look, Nathan and I have already settled this. So.
I shot a blank. There we go.
The Quick and the Dead has come out on top, so it is our number 3 Raimi film, which is perfect. I mean, look, this is the exact top 3 that I wanted, with the caveat that I would have been fine with Evil Dead 2 or Drag Me to Hell up there. Evil Dead 2 would have been great. And I'm really happy it's the Evil Dead, though, because I think this is like the perfect representation of Sam Raimi's versatility.
Almost like it feels like whichever one I watched the most recently is my favorite between Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so.
Because I've gone back and forth between those two every time I've watched them. I'm like, no, Evil Dead 2 is so much better, so much more fun. But I'm like, oh, but fuck. All the mythology is really an Evil Dead, the Evil Dead. And that's when you get everything set up. I want a supercut of the two films where you take everything that happened in the Evil Dead up until a certain point, and then you use
it's the very end when the camera's going through the house and it hits Ash.
Yeah.
And
then you switch to that part.
Yeah. So you basically just cut out the first like 8 to 10 minutes of Evil Dead 2 where it does the recap and then it cuts in there, yeah.
Yeah. If they just did that, like kind of like the Kill Bill Whole Bloody Affair thing, just do that with the Evil Dead, make one big cut, I'll be so fucking happy.
I do love that with all 3 of the Evil Dead movies, they make Bruce Campbell relive the same shit at the beginning of all of them. Even in Army of Darkness, they have Bridget Fonda come in and be the girlfriend character whose name is escaping me at the moment because it's almost midnight. But I love that they make him go to that the Nobi cabin every single time.
Yep.
So good.
So there we have it. The official Video Monsters top 3 Sam Raimi movies. Number 1, A Simple Plan. Number 2, The Evil Dead. Number 3, The Quick and the Dead. I am so happy.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
There were a few kind of touch and go moments throughout this one, but not nearly as contentious as I thought it was going to be. And only one chaos card.
My only goal was to get Simple Plan into the top 3.
Same. Man, I'm so glad that we were
the
like.
The whole reason I did not use a chaos card for the gift because I wasn't sure if I'd have to use it for a simple plan.
I wish I
It
had.
would
I
have
wish
depended
I'd used
on
it
what
on
it
a
went up
gift.
against. Oh man, I don't. I'm glad that you didn't. All right, so let's go through and talk about very, very quickly because we are like right at the time that is the long end of when I was hoping this episode would be done by. So let's go through and give our rankings, but really quick, I need to give, at least in my brain, I need to give this disclaimer that I have in my notes before I actually give my rankings because it'll clarify things. So as I was going through and rewatching and watching for the first time all of these movies, I hit a point where it was just like it is so difficult for me to decide which movie goes where. So, as I was writing this stuff down, I honestly don't know if I can actually rank these in a definitive order for myself. I was thinking that if I just ranked as I watch, it would be easier to make relative comparisons. But so far, I have loved each of these movies in their own way. There are some that are clearly lower, like Crime Wave, but they're also different that it's not an apples to apples comparison. There are factors like importance, nostalgia, personal preference of horror, objective quality of better actors and bigger budgets, creativity, rewatchability, how universally I could recommend it. So many fucking factors. I honestly don't think that I can rank these. I think every decision in the Punch Out will just have to be based on what the list looks like at that moment. And then I have to read what I put next to The Evil Dead before I actually go through what my rankings are. I adore this movie, and putting it anywhere other than number one feels wrong. It's the one movie more than any other on the list that I will buy every single time that I find it at a reasonable price. And I literally have 6 copies sitting right next to me. It might be the only one that I will buy every single time. And if I was ranking these based off of favorite and or nostalgia, then this is number one by a mile. So here is my actual rankings that again could very easily be swayed
Exciting.
with very little debate. Number 1, Evil Dead 2. Number 2, Quick and the Dead.
Wow.
Number 3, Darkman.
Damn.
Number 4, Drag Me to Hell. Number 5, A Simple Plan. Number 6, The Evil Dead. Number 7, Army of Darkness. Number 8, The Gift. Number 9, Oz the Great and Powerful. Number 10, Crime Wave. And number 11, For Love of the Game.
Oh,
Very interesting ranking. Mine's very different. I like that. That's a
Again,
fun. I like how much
the
yours is
first
spread out.
6, literally half the list are all number ones for me. Like those top 6, any of those could have been number one. I'm like, yeah, I can't argue it. But as I was watching each of them, as much as I love The Evil Dead, it was like, but this one has better acting. This one clearly has more refined cinematography. This one, and so there were all these other factors that it was like I can't keep objectively saying that The Evil Dead is better than these. I might love it more, but it is not objectively better. But again, I'm still also sad that it's number 2 rather than number 1. All right, Eric, what did your list look like?
All right, let's see. I'm gonna go count backwards because that's how I like to do things. All right, so my number 15, Crime Wave. 14, Oz the Great and Powerful. 13, For Love of the Game. 12, Spider-Man 3. 11, Doctor Strange. So I want to point out.
you're including your Spider-Mans.
Yeah, I'm including my Spider-Mans. I've got the whole thing. So everything from For Love of the Game down, I genuinely enjoy,
Oh, sure.
including Spider-Man 3. So
enjoyed everything that I watched, even though
Oz the Great and
I wouldn't-
Powerful and Crime Wave are the only 2 of his movies I would say are not good. Although Oz the Great and Powerful is fine. Like, it's whatever. And For Love of the Game is kind of fine too, but whatever. Anyway. Spider-Man 3 is at number 12. Number 11, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Number 10, The Gift. Number 9, Army of Darkness. Number 8, Drag Me to Hell. Number 7, Darkman. Number 6, Spider-Man. Number 5, The Quick and the Dead. And then my top 4 have all been number 1 at some point. So number 4, Evil Dead 2. Number 3, The Evil Dead. Number 2, Spider-Man 2. And number 1, A Simple Plan.
Wow. So our top 3 matched your 3 exactly, with Spider-Man not being in there and Evil Dead not coming out of the skull.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
All right. I will not include my Spider-Man, so I'd have to think about it for a bit. But in ascending order, we'll start at the bottom with Crime Wave, Oz the Great and Powerful, For Love of the Game, Quick and the Dead, Army of Darkness, Drag Me to Hell, Darkman, The Gift, The Evil Dead 2, and A Simple Plan.
But
Yours
you have
is-
the gift high.
Yours is yeah, no,
I love The Gift.
you flipped The Quick and the Dead and The Gift for me, and
Mhm.
then you flipped the Evil Deads. That's pretty fun. So, but otherwise, ours is exactly the same. But again, I mean, I could flip those two. Like those are so.
Yeah. Well, with such variety in our rankings, I think that once again, the skull has given us exactly what we needed. We needed the Evil Dead, not Evil Dead 2. As much as was it higher on all of our lists?
Which the Evil Dead?
Was Evil Dead 2
Evil Dead
higher?
2 was higher
Oh.
by me, but only by one.
It's not
And
on
I say
mine.
them all the time.
I have the Evil Dead higher than Evil Dead 2. I generally like with most of the film series that follow the structure, whether it's like this or the Terminator, I generally like the grungier, grimier, more like low budget DIY version better. The more like straight horror version better than the bigger sequel. But that's just kind of me.
It's totally makes sense. Yeah, so I love our final three. I love the personality of our individual lists. I love that A Simple Plan has made it to the end, so Dustin Kramer does not have to, throw the podcast out the window. So
He's like, I'm not posting this shit if Simple Plan's not in there. I love that we give a lot of I hope that people go check this movie out.
A Simple
If
Plan,
they've never seen it. Yeah, I
it's
hope that
great.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm very excited about that.
very deservedly a number one topping the list. All right, we've gone on a few minutes longer than what I was hoping for. We could easily keep talking about these movies, but we are going to end stuff here. So, Eric, what should people do if they like this episode?
They should rate, review, and subscribe to Video Monsters on their podcast platform of choice. Say nice things about us. You're not listening to this through your podcaster app, at least not immediately. I'm sure we'll probably post this later, but yeah, go find us, subscribe to us, say nice things about us, follow us, and yeah, all the good stuff. I did it way too long. I'm sorry. Go on.
And Dan, why should people keep coming back, keeping in mind that this is very much out of canonical order because we still have episodes from months ago that I haven't posted, and who knows when this is going to be coming out in our feed, but it is part of the Chat Film Fest.
Well, they should come back to us because we're going to be doing a punch out of the Chat Film Fest 2023 films, as well as because again I don't even know what you've posted, but the top female film directors of recent years, the films that we did, the Punch Out, as well as the films chosen in the Punch Out. Plus, hey, if you're just catching us for the first time, we've got a whole backlog of super fun episodes that you should just dive into. Anything from crazy ass horror films to prestige films to all the weird oddities in between. There's a lot out there for you.
So much, over 400 episodes at this point. And you can follow along when we record these episodes, typically in Discord. The link for our Discord, as well as all of our socials, you can go to linktree.com/videomonsterpod, and I'll make sure to have all of our socials listed there. So yeah, that's been it for this episode of Video Monsters, where we take movies seriously, but not ourselves. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
And thank you, Sam Raimi and Chattanooga Film Festival.